Hey guys, I just got back from another pickup. Couple items I definitely was not seeking out, but I felt compelled to rescue them. As happens now and then, somebody posted on social media that they had some stuff that had to go. It was going in a landfill. Time was of the essence. They either just bought a house or were selling a house. Either way, this stuff had to get out of the house and they were going to throw it away. And is also very often the case, lots of people chimed in saying, oh, it's got to be saved, it's got to be saved, but few people step up to the plate and actually make it happen. Well, I did. Because it was close by, I knew exactly what it was, and well, I'll just get to it. It is an Admiral TV. Now, I am somewhat disappointed that a lot of you don't seem to like these. You don't like the aesthetics of the cabinet. That's one of my favorites, and I'll tell you a few reasons why. First off, it's an Admiral, I don't know the exact cabinet model number, but it's a 30C1 chassis, which is a slight refinement of their very first chassis, which is the 30A1. And they had a series of cabinets that went along with it. Walnut, mahogany, blonde, and so on. And the model numbers, I believe, all start with 30. Design aesthetics aside, it is one of the most robust electrical designs and physical constructions you're going to come across. I'm sometimes asked to recommend a good beginner's set. This is it. If you want a magnetically deflected TV, this is it. One reason, separate power supply, which makes it really easy to work on recap the power supply. And it's a really beefy power supply. All you have to do is disconnect that cable, take this out, work on it to your heart's content. We got two power transformers. We have a filter choke, dual rectifiers. Also, I think that's the audio output tube down there. And let's see. Yeah, it's a field coil speaker, so that's one of the filter chokes. Some models have a permanent magnet, in which case there's two filter chokes on the lower chassis. In this case, one filter choke, one output transformer, and the other filter choke being the field coil on the transformer. That also makes the receiving chassis way less, so it's easier to get up on the workbench and move around. Other great thing is there's lots of room under here. By splitting things out, I don't think there's any electrolytics up here. Maybe there's one small one up there, and it's really wide open under here. Very easy to get at stuff and work on. It also performs really, really well. Some may disagree with me, but I'll stand by my assessment that this is a slight variation, in some case slightly superior to the early RCA design, the 630TS powerhouse design. What RCA chose to do, as you've seen on some of my videos, and you'll see on chassis like these two right here, which are somewhat newer ones, see that metal thing here? What's behind that is a massive power resistor. Other variations of this chassis have a different configuration of where those power resistors are located, but they have it's a huge voltage divider. What they chose to do is have one huge power transformer, often dual 5U4 rectifiers, and then have a huge power resistor with taps on it for the various voltages the sets need. And that wastes a ton of power that gets really hot and they're prone to failure. The various circuits need different voltage. Typically the IF needs less voltage than the deflection circuits. What Admiral chose to do was have two power transformers. Low voltage, higher voltage. You can think of maybe B++ and B+. So say 350 volts and 150 volts, 175 volts. Two separate, no wasted power. I mean, yes, these things do get hot. They're certainly still consuming tons of power, but you don't have that high failure part. You don't have that part that gets super hot and requires special mounting considerations, and is kind of tough to replace. So that's one thing where I like this design better. Now, they do need a negative voltage on this too. RCA chose to use a really complicated scheme where the center taps on the power transformers don't go to ground, they go to negative supply, and that some of the capacitors are flipped where the positives go to the negative, and then the positive goes to ground, and people get, it could be tricky to work on those power supplies. What they did is they used a selenium rectifier off the filament supply to generate a negative bias. So there's, I guess you could think of it as having three power supplies. B++, B+, and B-, which is under here. They eliminated the centering controls, somewhat simplified design. Yeah, they're cool to have. They supply a slight bias voltage to the yoke deflection, so you can center the pitcher up, down, left, right with potentiometers varying that DC bias voltage. Doing that requires additional circuitry and complexities. Admiral went with, okay, here's our focus coil, we're just going to mount it with 4 springs, and you can tighten and loosen these 4 screws to center the pitcher. That's one other big refinement they did. It might have one less IF stage, I'm not sure about that, but otherwise they are darn near identical. They use a little bit more with miniature tubes and octal tubes than RCA did. They use the same flyback, I think the same damper tube, the same horizontal output tube, the same synchro glide, whatever, horizontal lock coil. I assume they paid some licensing fees to be able to do all that. Anyways, my point being, these perform almost as well as the RCA, but are a whole lot easier to work on. So the cabinet, which seems to be what people really don't like about these. Yeah, the top sticks out the front. You got 2 choices, well 3 choices. Make the cabinet super deep, have the neck stick out the back where it can get knocked off or you have to put a safety cup on it. They chose to have this front overhang, which means you can have, the back is flush. You put this right against the wall. They have a slight kick out here to give you a little bit of a gap there, probably for ventilation. And the front juts out a little bit. So what? I think it's kind of a neat design compromise. Then all their various models have different emblems or treatment down here. This is the one that has the diamond in the middle with the brass center part. Okay, all that aside, the previous owner, I guess maybe it was his house that he was selling, and maybe his father had passed away. I think he said his father had worked on it, kind of had it working, had the SAMs and tinkered around with it. From what I can see, nothing major's been done to it. So I intend to restore it. The cabinet looks pretty rough, but I don't see any major veneer loss or separation or any issues. It just has been somewhat mistreated for a long time, but not terrible. I'll probably salvage most of the finish. And the electronics, like these sets are rock solid. Now, as a bonus, he threw this in, which I don't know anything about other than what some of you commented on. It's a General Electric long-range radio, AM, FM, AFC. It is tube, I've been told, but this is a late set. This would be from the 60s. Here's a better look at it. There is a label on the back. I think this is the walnut version, so it's a T265B. And here's a tube chart, and as one of you pointed out to me, it might have some tubes that I'm not familiar with, and yes, I am not familiar with these tubes. The 19HV8, 19JN8, and 50HK6. I looked those all up. They are a refinement of tubes you might find in an older All-American 5 or AM/FM tube radio. I believe they all have 2 active elements in them, so maybe a triode and a pentode, that kind of thing. So whereas this tube might be the first audio and final audio output stage. So even though there's only 6 tubes, I think it has 8, 9, 10 active tube elements going on inside of it. So I was also told that I might be surprised at how well this works. We shall find out. We shall find out. I think I will do a Friday night restoration on it, which is a video I typically do on a Friday night where I do a project start to finish, or at least try to in one session. I do intend to restore both. I will probably sell both. I already have several other Admirals. I can't keep them all. I'm actively in the process of downsizing. I will list things for sale as they get completed. Talk more about that in a later video. Still busy reorganizing things, but I wanted to give you guys a little look at this new acquisition. So love them or hate them, they do perform well. They are easy to work on. I highly recommend them for beginners. They're also fairly plentiful. Thanks for watching.